What happened to all the hordes of little children? They got partied out or something? You don't know?
No idea.
Huh?
No idea.
No idea. Too much lunch for Shadam. Okay. There was a large gathering. It's kind of unique that a Saturday afternoon gathering, usually it's smaller attended than a Saturday evening program, and this is reverse. Tomorrow is Ram Navami, one of the most important days in our Vaishnav calendar year. It's one of the 4 days that we observe a full day fast. So I hope they prepared nice prasadam this evening for all of you. And auspicious day for remembering. It's been nice for me. It's multiple programs during the week leading up to tonight, where different features of Lord Ramachandra's pastimes have been discussed. We'll continue again tomorrow morning, just reading directly from the Bhagavatam, Canto 9. And I thought of just covering 3 aspects of Ramachandra's pastimes this evening. One is the model, because from this morning or this afternoon, the
front door.
The purpose of Ramachandra's, or function of Ramachandra's appearance, among other ways, multiple ways of describing, setting the example of the ideal king. So one of the functions of the ideal king is set standards for dharma, or morality. And we covered this afternoon 4 aspects of that topic. His most well-known one of upholding the word of his father, despite consequences that appeared awful for him and others.
Front door.
Is that something you can tell the lady to be quiet?
Front door.
Door open is which? Door open is
Can we do this? Could you in the front move up, and then you right behind move up, and then everybody move up? Because the front door lady is going to keep telling us every time somebody comes in. And then there's going to not be room enough. So if we can do it now. Vivu Chaitanya, come forward a bit, or you're going to go somewhere and take care of the children. Please come forward. Please come forward. Please come forward. Please come forward. I already got one. I don't need 2. One's good. Thanks. We'll start again. Welcome, everybody. Ram Nomi. So in addition to Lord Ramachandra setting standards of dharma and morality, which we heard, as an ideal king, he, in various ways, taught standards of an ideal king. So I wanted to speak about one of those from Uttarakhanda section of Valmiki Ramayana. And I want to speak something about that which could be practical for all of us, the mood of humble service from Shabri and her qualification. And then the third thing is, want to go a little bit into the Rassa aspect of Ramachandra's pastimes. Because there's the storyline, so to speak, the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra. And in his pastimes, just as Shukadeva Goswami says, right, in Canto 9, Chapter 10, he is imparting valuable instructions through his pastimes. So we touched on that this afternoon. And there's a deeper sense, not so easy to understand, deeper sense that, assisted by our acharyas, we can learn a lot from, that helps solve some of the mystery of Ram's pastimes. So we'll touch on those three topics. Very dramatic. So, there's two episodes in, once Ram returns to Ayodhya and takes the position of king, he, as an ideal king, he wants to make sure that dharma is upheld in his kingdom. There's various ways. One we're all very familiar with. He would go in disguise. Of course, if you're green in color, how do you go in disguise? But he would disguise himself and move about his kingdom and eavesdrop on people to see how they were speaking about his rulership. Of course, you could have other people do that, but he would do it himself. That's when he heard the washerman speak the words that he spoke, and he did what he did with Sita. But another was, he had timings when anybody in the entire kingdom could come and speak with him directly. Now imagine if the mayor of Chicago had open door policy and anybody in all of Chicago, or the governor of the state, or the president, or what to speak of the emperor of the world, anybody anywhere in his entire kingdom could come and speak to him in person. So one of those occasions was when some sages came from Madhurapuri, indicating that there was a demon that was required Ram's attention because they couldn't handle him. So this is where Shatrughna went and took care of that responsibility. There's another there's this word among scholars where it's not clear whether something was inserted within the original text or not, so there's some controversy about the following, but it indicates a principle that's worth hearing in any case. Ram is seated on the royal throne. Lakshman is there, his ministers are there, his military heads are there, everybody's all assembled, and Ram turns to Lakshman and says, "It's our appointed time for those who wish to come and speak to me and state their concern or grievance may come. Go to the front gate and see if there's anybody there." So Lakshman goes, and he comes back and reports, "There's no one having any want or any need in the entire kingdom." And Ram says, "Go look again. Because in my kingdom there should be no adharma, and no one should say that I've been negligent in upholding and maintaining principles of dharma. So go again and look." And so he goes under the order of Ram, and there's nobody there. But there's one dog whose head is bashed in on the side and bloodied and whining and whimpering when he comes to the gate. So Lakshman asks the dog, what happened to you? And what seems to be the difficulty? And the dog speaks. And the dog says that, "I'd like to have audience with Ram." And Lakshman says, "Well, this is the appointed time and you should come." And the dog speaks in detail, very like a learned Brahmin. He speaks language that indicates that in temples where the gods are, in palaces where the king is, where assemblies of great souls are, only qualified persons should come, and I'm simply this low-born creature, a dog, and unless Ram specifically invites me to come, I should not come in his presence. So he's already indicated his will, but he has this hesitation, reservation. So Lakshman goes back again and says what the message for him is, and he said, whoever it is, if they've come to get my audience, they should be brought at once. So with Ram's invitation, the dog comes, and the dog speaks very, again, in very learned words, about the exalted position of a king. Specifically, messages about the king is the upholder of dharma, and the citizens who are abiding by dharma feel protected by the qualified king, because the king not only upholds dharma himself and sees that the citizens are doing so also, but if someone is making a transgression against dharma, the king is very strong. So all the citizens, as a result, will feel safe and protected. And if that's absent, then there's fear amongst all the citizens, and uncertainty and unhappiness. And if you allow me, I'll say something that may not be so pleasing. So he has some bad news. And Ram says, speak freely. Don't have any fear that what you may say may be harmful, or just speak. And the dog said, there's a Brahmin in your kingdom, and I forget his name, it starts with an S, Samantra, Siddha, something to that effect. And he smashed my head with his rod, and for no cause. And Ram turned to his associates and said, bring this Brahmana, Samantra Siddha, whatever his name was, at once. The Brahmana is brought, the Brahmana is shown the dog, and he's asked, what's your side of the story, basically. Did you do this? If you did this, what was the reason for smashing this dog in the head and breaking his skull? Why did you do this? What was the reason, the justification? Did you do it? If so, what's the justification? And the Brahmana then speaks a number of verses specific to what Scripture says about anger. And essentially, anger, like pride, anger destroys all one's virtue, all one's good qualities, whatever austerities, whatever good merit one has accumulated. At once it's all ruined by anger. And then he, after citing Scripture, he said, yes, I did this bad deed, and here's the circumstance, like guilty with an explanation, kind of. He said, I was, my means of maintaining myself is madhukari, I accept alms. And for the whole day, I went without any reciprocation from anyone in the entire kingdom that I approached. And so I was very weak and very hungry and very agitated in my mind. And as I was going empty-handed back to my home, the dog was seated right in the path. So I told the dog, please move so I can pass. But the dog moved so slowly and my mind was in such a disturbed state. With my staff I hit him very strongly. And this is the result of anger due to frustration. And I'm certainly ready to be punished by whatever means you and your ministers feel is appropriate. So, guilty with an explanation. And Ram turns to the ministers and asks the ministers, what is the appropriate punishment for this man? And they have a minister discussion and come up with the conclusion that according to Scriptures, even if there's transgression, a Brahmana is not to be punished, so the Brahmana should not be punished. And then they go on, and the dog then speaks, if you allow me, I can suggest what would be an appropriate consequence for this Brahman's action. He should be made the head priest of the main temple in Ayodhya, such and such temple. And Ram looked at the dog and looked at his ministers and said, so be it. And the Brahmana was jumping for joy, thinking I was going to get it. Now I'm being pushed in the position of head priest, chief priest of one of the main temples in Ayodhya. So as he left, the ministers asked Ram, what kind of punishment is that? There was all this discussion about how should he be punished, and instead he's rewarded for clearly admitted bad behavior, very bad behavior. So Ram said, you're unaware of the principles of dharma, but the dog is. So the dog said, if you allow me, I'll explain why I made this suggestion. In my previous life, I was the chief priest of that temple. And I tried to do everything very carefully. I observed all the rules. I was very kind to the servants who were assisting in the temple. Everything was punctual, everything was very clean, all the rituals were done in the proper manner. No debts were accrued. Everything was going, as far as I could manage, things were going on very well. But there must have been some pride in my heart, and I must have made some offense to some persons, because as a result I'm now in this life a dog. So the fact that this Brahmana, who's so harsh and cruel and hot-tempered and easily angered, so easily can accept the position of responsibility like that, he'll bring his own ruination. We don't have to punish him. He'll bring his own destruction. He'll have an opportunity, if he can learn from the mistake that he made, to correct himself. And otherwise, he'll become a dog like me. That will be his punishment, unless he learned. And hearing the words that's spoken like that, this because previously he was a Brahmin, he knew these things because in his previous life he had that capacity and was virtuous. I mean, how to explain how someone becomes, how a dog can speak knowledge, that's another thing. But Hanuman spoke great knowledge. He was a unique personality as well. In Ramayana we have many Jatayu speaking, Sampati speaking, and so forth. The context, we from that principle that Ram observed, it lasted for 4 or 5 years at our GBC meeting. There was one section of our GBC meeting. It was screened a little bit, so it wasn't just like crazy ranting people coming. But we had people put in writing some concern that they wished to share with the GBC, and those that were well thought out and reasonable, whether we agreed or didn't agree, that, some concern they would like to bring. So there was some hours dedicated to meetings just for people to come forward and express themselves. Not necessarily like a gripe session, but just, something that's of concern, and they would like the ultimate managing authority of our society to hear and give it some attention. Yad yad acharati shreshtas tat tat eve tororjana. Message of Bhagavad Gita is, whatever the shreshtas in society, whatever the great personalities in society do, common men will follow. So it's an important principle that if you at some point in time take a leadership position, and in one sense in this world Vaishnavas, by nature or by calling or by the unique position within society, all Vaishnavas have some position of leadership. And because it's if you read carefully in the first canto Srimad Bhagavatam, the condition of this age of Kali, where 3 legs of dharma are broken and only one is somewhat remaining, that of truthfulness, how to restore spiritual life in a yuga that's so broken. And again, Prabhupada would refer to the necessity of, through training and education and spiritual teachings, to bring society from a fallen condition to a first-class position. When he would say, the purpose of the Hare Krishna movement is to create a class of first-class men. By that first-class men, it means Brahmanas, or even better as Vaishnavas. So once you become a Vaishnava, or at least we're trying to become Vaishnavas, immediately that sets standards in the world. You may not be, such and such title. You may not be a temple president. There may not even be a temple. You may be whatever you may be. You may just be a worker in the workplace. But being a worker in the workplace, you're an example-setting person in the workplace or in school. Now, do the kids in your school know that you're a devotee? Looking at this young boy here. Yeah. No, nobody knows. How about you? They don't know.
Well, like my friends who are Indian.
Your friends that are Indian, they know.
The ones that I like hang out with outside of school.
Yeah.
They know that,
They know that you're a devotee. So, you three, and then all the rest of us that have some other circle of people that we move around in, we have an opportunity. We like it or not, it's an opportunity and it's a responsibility to show by example, this is what a devotee is. They don't know all the devotees. They know you. And of course you're an individual, but they get some sense of what a devotee is by who you are. So it's a great opportunity to give Bhagavad Gita's message without having a Bhagavad Gita class, just by how you conduct yourself with your friends, or the people in the workplace, or wherever you move, here and there. I certainly understand that. Now this is an application point, all of what I'm speaking now. It's leaders have an opportunity to show by example. That's the message. And so part of what our function is, each one of us within society, is to be an example. And the many, many things that are there in Ramayana, the standards are high, but it gives us an ideal to strive for, or at least a principle that to understand separate from the demoniac personalities that are within Ramayana, the exalted personalities within Ramayana, and how they show by example. Just like a question was asked, if Ram already knew that he was going to accept Vibhishan because Vibhishan surrendered, then why did he ask his ministers if he already knew what he was going to do? Because he was teaching by example. That's what leaders do. They consult. The Kshatriya consults the Brahmanas and the others who you're relying upon. Now, a leader also has to make a decision. He made the decision. He made a very, very strong and clear decision. Prabhupada would do like that sometimes. He'd be in a room, some situation we brought to his attention, and he would ask, so and so people, what do you think? And the devotee would go, well, whatever you want, Prabhupada, that's what I think. And Prabhupada would become a little upset and say, no, I want to know what you think. And it's not like he needed our input in order to get the right answer. In one sense, he was training us how to go about making good decisions. So he was asking. But it's also a principle. You involve people in the decision-making process, and they feel much more inclined to go with the decision than if they just, something falls from the sky and here's the decision. It's part of leadership. And even in the case of Ram, hearing from anybody. He wanted that standard to be there in his kingdom. Anybody. Oh, that's a different yuga and a different personality. But the principle is something that we can consider. When we're doing things in our communities, we want to find out how other people feel about, should we do things this way or should we do things that way? It's a good policy, not just politics, it's good policy of involving people and getting the wisdom, collective wisdom, and of course, if you're so exalted like Lord Ramachandra, you don't need to, you do it anyways, just out of principle. Then another nice section, this is now moving on to a point that was mentioned earlier today, but I wanted to amplify it. Hanuman mentions in his prayers to Lord Ramachandra, these 5th canto, chapter 19 prayers. And Prahlad mentions it in his prayers, canto 7, chapter 19, where both of them speak. The personality of Godhead doesn't look to the material qualification or the absence of material qualification. Persons aren't qualified or disqualified based upon their birth, their education, or any other of those kinds of material qualifications. So what's needed instead, this is Rupa Goswami's teaching, the eligibility of a candidate for devotional service. Those of you that have read Nectar of Devotion, eligibility of a candidate for devotional service is the title of one of the chapters. So who is eligible? You could say who's not ineligible, but education, birth, material conditions of any kind, wealth, popularity, this skill, that skill, not required. It's something one can use in Krishna service, but it's not a prerequisite. So what's the prerequisite? So the prerequisite is one wants to be in Krishna service. And that sincerity is what Krishna accepts. And the sincerity, as it grows, becomes stronger and stronger, eventually becomes loving devotional service in a spontaneous manner. But even in the regulative manner, I sincerely desire to be in Krishna service. I'm not there, but I want to be. I want to come to that position. So Krishna accepts. So a very nice example, there's many, but one example I like very much is Shabri. This came up in one of the other discussions in Naperville. Not in Valmiki Ramayana, but one of the other Adhyatma Ramayana, the background of Shabri is explained like this. She was born and as the daughter of one of the leaders of the tribal people that lived in the forest. And her father's occupation was, he was a hunter of animals in the forest. So when his daughter, Shabri, became of marriageable age, a marriage was suggested and she was ready to be married. If you sit right there, people can't get in. You got to come sit in here with the rest of us. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So, her father, being a leader of the tribal people, wanted to have a nice marriage. So he arranged a big feast. And the big feast for a hunter was the bodies of dead animals. And she saw this whole big array of the bodies of dead animals. And she was disgusted. So she left. She didn't even go through with the marriage. She just left the place and left home and was wandering in the forest here and there, searching in her heart for some alternative to this other life that she had grown up with. And by providential arrangement, she came eventually to the hermitage of Sage Matanga. And Sage Matanga could understand her simplicity, not educated, not high birth, but very sincere, very, very dedicated to a purpose of higher consciousness. So he made an arrangement for her to have a place in her hermitage, a little unusual hermitage where there's this ascetic lady staying over there. But she had a little place, and she was happy just being in their company, hearing their discussions, doing a little service here and there. And she eventually became a very elevated lady, living an ascetic life, very lean and thin, became very old, and even older than her was Sage Matanga. So when it was Sage Matanga's time to leave his body, she wanted to go with him. Not like, a wife following her husband, but that was her life and soul. He was her life and soul. So she requested, can I leave when you leave? Enter into the funeral pyre, and wherever you go, I'll go and serve you wherever you go. And he said no, because after some time, Lord Ramachandra will come to this hermitage, and I want you to stay and serve him very nicely when he comes, and then you can go. So that's what she did. She had this sadhana that some of us also in our homes have. Only we have a deity and she didn't even have a deity. But she, in her mind, she was preparing, today may be the day that Lord Ramachandra will come. And so every day she had a broom and she made the pathways coming into the hermitage all very clean for Ramachandra may come. And then she would go and gather berries and roots and whatever she could find, edibles in the forest, wash them very carefully, put them in a place so when Ram came, if Ram came, they would be there for him. And in various ways, like we do in our homes, at our altar, whether we have deities or just pictures or whatever, we're serving the personality of Godhead. But to do in a ritualistic way is one thing, to do in a mood of devotion is another. So every day, and it went on for years, waiting, maybe this is going to be the day that Ram will come. So the anticipation, this is important because the next thing is Rassa. That's the third topic I want to discuss. The anticipation of meeting, or in our case, the anticipation that's the favorite spot, right there where people have to walk. Please don't sit there, because if you sit there, when people come, they won't be able to come in. We should have a little sign that says, don't sit here. Come on in. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. What is rasa? Rasa it's a word that Rupa Goswami used. It means mellow or taste. And taste comes when purity of the heart is there. So how does one purify one's heart? You engage in activities of purification that lead to that state of purification. They're built within them is purification. And on the other side of purification, you still do those activities, but in purified consciousness. Like Prabhupada said, the goal of chanting is more chanting. We chant Hare Krishna so that we can continue chanting Hare Krishna. It's the means and the end in itself. But one is to become purified and the other is in a purified state. It's not a bridge to get to where you want to be, it's everything. So deity worship or doing what Shabri did. There was no deity, but it was a meditation on serving the personality of Godhead. So there's a way of engaging in deity worship or making offerings where it's mechanical or ritualistic. Like, okay, I'm becoming a devotee, and I was taught that not only we should be vegetarian, but we should offer our food to Krishna. So there's this little procedure of how you offer your food to Krishna. You put up some pictures and you ring a bell and you say some words, and then voila, it's offered. That's the ritual. That's the external. But the devotion is something far more than the ritual. It patram pushpam palam toyam. Whether the ritual is there or not, if something is offered with love and devotion, Krishna will accept. So the ritual, the procedure that we follow is to assist us in being regulated and connect ourselves to the activity itself. There's this interesting conversation. I wasn't there, but there was a developer that wanted to buy the building right next door to the Chicago temple. You know, that side of the temple, not where the alley is, but the other side where there's windows. So what he wanted to do as a developer was block off our windows. You know, that knock down the building, extend it as far back as you can go to the back wall, so he could buy for X and sell it for 3X. That's what developers do. But there was opposition from the local people. Where are you going to put the parking? And of course, the temple had big opposition because, wait a minute. And then in the course of the discussion, this is with the aldermen and a whole bunch of the zoning people, because they had to get variance to change the zoning from that to this. And the developer was really surprised that the temple had, you know, such big concern. Then so the other people that were complaining about what about the parking said, what do you feel about the temple? They said, oh, we like, they, you know, at 4:30 in the morning, and they have their trumpets. It's very nice. You know, from them it's just, they don't know what it is. They think it's trumpets. It's just, you know, the devotee pujari blowing the conch shell, because it's Mangalarti time. But for us, it's, you know, it's the Lord is going to appear. Ooh, ooh. So it's an auspicious sound, and it's preparing the hearts to receive the Lord. So then everyone stands, and then the curtain opens, and everyone pays obeisances. We have the rituals, but the essence of those rituals is really what's important, not the ritual itself. So we have the same opportunity. The point I'm trying to make here is, we have the same opportunity as Shabri. We're being told by our acharyas, we'll just say our founder acharya, by Srila Prabhupada, that by following these procedures of rising early in the morning, taking bath, performing, coming before your altar, performing Mangal Arti, making bhog offerings, chanting the holy, we can go back to Godhead. We can be with Krishna. Now, Shabri heard from Sage Matanga. She didn't have a deity. She just had Sage Matanga. But she took it in a very sincere and serious way. So every day. No, Ram didn't have to come. Of course, this is past time. He did come. But what brought him to come was her sincere devotion. I was asked this question recently. We hear about the devotees holding Krishna in their heart. How does Krishna feel? Well, Krishna feels the same. For Krishna, the devotee is in his heart. That's just these beautiful statements made by Lord Vishnu to Durvasa Muni about Maharaj Ambarish. Because for the devotee, they know nothing but me. And for me, I know nothing but them. For the devotee, I am in the core of their heart. And for me, the devotee is in the core of my heart. Now, there's lots of devotees, but he's got a big heart. And there's one Supreme Lord, and he's really big, but he can make himself custom fit for our heart. There's this explanation from the second canto Bhagavatam, chapter 2. It speaks of Supersoul being the size of the thumb. You familiar with that, some of you? So what does that mean? Size of the thumb. It means it's roughly the size of the heart, the size of the thumb. It's not that there's a material measurement and he has to size himself up to fit within that that size of your thumb size. Because actually his size is Anor Aniyam Samanus Maredya. He is bigger than the biggest and smaller than the smallest at the same time. One of my godbrothers, Sachi Sutta, was once asking Prabhupada, how does it work? The soul is said to be 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair. And super soul is said to be 6 inches or the size of the thumb. And the super soul is inside the individual soul. So Prabhupada, how does that work? Do the math, it doesn't work. And Prabhupada just repeated, said, what is the problem? Super soul is 1/1000th the size of the tip of a hair, and super soul is inside the heart of the individual soul. What's the problem? Because he's not confined by material measures. So to say, the Lord is in the heart, or Krishna may appear in the heart of his devotee, he's already there. Why does he have to appear? He's already there. But he can appear to our vision. Why? Because of devotion. In fact, he hides himself from those who don't want to see him. That is to say it in reverse. Question. In the spiritual world, in Vaikuntha or Goloka, is there super soul or not? No. Why? Let's say it in reverse. If there's no super soul in Goloka or Vaikuntha, why is there super soul here? We discussed this afternoon about the Purusha avatars, and super soul is one of them. It's for the purpose of creation. It's for persons who turn their attention away from Krishna and want to be the enjoyers separately from Krishna. That's the creation. It's Maya. So for those who want to enjoy separately from Krishna, they turn their attention away from Krishna, but you can't. So instead he hides himself in their heart. They can't see him, not just because he's, small and inside the heart. They don't have the spiritual vision. But in Goloka or Vaikuntha, he's outside in the form of Narayana or Govinda or Nrsimha or Rama in the Vaikuntha realm. And he's guiding that way because the devotees just want to do what he wants. And Super Soul is there for people who want to do something else. So, back to Shabri. She was given a sadhana, as we are given a sadhana. This is the practical application message. We're also given a sadhana of doing certain things, and you do those certain things, and one day you will see Krishna. One day Krishna will come to you and say to you, I am like this. During the deity installation in Los Angeles, Rukmini Dwarkadish, Prabhupada personally installed, and he spoke in the same way. He said, you worship the deity with devotion, and one day the deity will speak to you, and he will say, I am like this. It's not so much different than Sage Matanga saying to Shabri, we have more material qualification than Shabri. Education, some wealth, some of this and some of that. We have a cell phone, we got a computer, we got a car, we got central heating in our house, we got material stuff that Shabri didn't have. She was an Aborigine woman, an ascetic with no education other than she knew what she didn't want. And she had some idea of what she wanted, and Sage Matunga made that arrangement. So with faith, that one day Ram will come. So every day, which we can do in our home, or wherever we are, in our temple, and one day Krishna will speak to you and say, I am like this. In principle, there's no difference. And so it's not meant just like it's a storybook person, and it's not really meant for me. It's really meant for each one of us. There's the means of becoming purified, and the means of becoming purified is hearing the name, form, Bhagavad Dharma, qualities, pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How do you take persons who are unqualified and have them become qualified? Bhagavad Dharma is that means. It's appropriate at any time, but it's especially appropriate, singularly appropriate for the sage of Kali. Because the other alternative in the Vedic process, without truly qualified brahmanas, meaning they not only know the mantras and the tantras, but they know Brahman, according to the teachings of the scripture, and they know because they've been taught by similarly qualified persons. In this age of Kali, it's not there. So, Shabri is a fantastic example. And one day Ram came, and how delighted was she. This was after years of every day, Ram came with Lakshman and Sita, and she was beside herself with joy. And she served them very happily, very peacefully, very devotionally, and took their blessings and gave the indication to them directly how they could find Sugriva. And then she left this world, thinking of Ram, calling Ram's name. Same as we heard this afternoon about Bali. Bali had become corrupted by pride and the endowments of benedictions from the demigods that made him a proud man. So he was violent. But actually his heart was good. And he died from the arrow of Ram, calling Ram's name. He had become purified by his association, and his pride certainly removed. And the good instructions from Ram was a big assist. So, during one of our programs earlier this week, someone was appreciating their fascination by the quality of Shabri. That kind of resonated with me because I'm also fascinated by her qualification. Certainly persons that are very elevated in eloquent communication of the teachings of the scripture it's very attractive, but that the attractiveness really is the quality of devotion of an individual. I'll just share this little story and then one last thing about Rassa. Long time ago, I was visiting a place that's remote. I'm not even going to say the name of the place. And to get there, it's one of those international flights that get in, at some ridiculous hour of the night. 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, leaving at some totally disruptive hour and arriving at a totally sadhana disruptive hour. I don't know why they do that, but they do that. So I reached the airport, was taken by the devotees to the place, and I wanted to get ready for the morning class. So I went to take a shower, and there's a little girl that's, a daughter of one of the family members, and she couldn't wait. I was still putting on my dhoti, and she just came right into the room. I wanted to give a gift. So I finished tying my dhoti and accepted her gift. And it was necklaces. It was necklaces of beads of multicolors and multi-sizes. But to this day, certainly even then, but to this day, it was very meaningful. Because she was so much anticipating the visit, and I want to give something to Maharaj, and totally impractical, not even artistic, even impractical. But the devotion was so overwhelming, she couldn't wait. Okay, thanks. Let me finish putting my tilak on now. I'll come down in a little bit. But I remind her each time I see this little girl. She's now older than a little girl now. But that natural devotion is what's pleasing. Like Vidura's wife that was so excited when Krishna came to her home. There are different versions of Mahabharata, but one of them is she offered the banana peel instead of the banana, and Krishna ate it. Because it was offered with such love and devotion. That's what Krishna wants. And hearing these descriptions of devotees, like, one of the Ramayana versions of the squirrel that was kicking little grains of sand and dust in to help build the bridge, Ram was appreciating the devotion of that little squirrel. He was doing as much as he could, while Hanuman was doing as much as he could, and that in Ram's view, equal, because they're doing what they could. So each one of us, whatever our capacity is, it's what it is. There may be somebody else that has a much greater capacity, and that's wonderful, and we have a capacity, whatever we have, whatever that is. And if we make that offering with devotion, not the ritualistic, mechanical kind, but with devotion, that attracts Krishna, and Krishna will then disclose himself to us. We'll come closer to our natural relationship with Krishna. So one last point, and I'm only going to touch on it because it's really requires some preparation, like detailed preparation to understand the topic nicely. But like with any of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, here's one. In the relationship with Lord Nrsingadev, coming to kill Hiranyakashipu. And after killing Hiranyakashipu, the associates of Hiranyakashipu came and they all tried to take revenge. So Lord Sringadev manifested many more arms, was roaring really loudly and destroyed them all. The whole place was filled with strewn bodies of defeated associates of Hiranyakashipu. Then, when that was over, the demigods came, and one by one, a whole chapter of offering prayers, and his anger wouldn't subside. So they requested, Prahlad, because he appeared for you, you come forward and offer your prayers, maybe his anger will subside. So the very first verse says, even the goddess of fortune was astonished and afraid to come forward. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur very nicely explained. The word that's used is adbhuta, astonished. The adbhuta is one of the 7 secondary rasas. And he explains that she became astonished by the arrangement of the internal potency of the Supreme Lord. Now, she's the goddess of fortune. She's representing a portion of the internal potency, but the internal potency overwhelmed her primary rasa, being the conjugal rasa of the consort of the personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, and instead the higher rasa, or the secondary rasa, eclipsed that of astonishment. And because she was astonished, all the others also likewise became astonished. Astonished and afraid. But it's rasa. So that the science of rasa says that there's primary rasas, but sometimes the 7 secondary rasas become very prominent. And it's like a tsunami or something. It just covers the land, covers everything. And then it subsides. But when it's spiking, it's very strong and prominent, it enhances and strengthens the primary rasa, although it seems temporarily to cover it. And another example of that is Grandfather Bhishma. Grandfather Bhishma's primary rasa with Krishna is servitorship, dasya rasa. Although he's grandfather, dasya rasa. And despite his dasya rasa, he took the position of attempting to kill Krishna's dearmost friend, knowing that Krishna wouldn't permit that. Not possible. Just recently heard Prabhupada describe, not possible. He knew it's not possible. Not possible because Krishna wouldn't let it happen. Although Bhishma is in Dasya Rasa, Arjuna is in Sakya Rasa, the dearmost friend of Krishna. So Krishna wouldn't let it happen. So he was firing arrows at Krishna, firing arrows at Arjuna, and Krishna would stand in the way and catch the arrows. And Krishna was enjoying the rasa of chivalry. Bhishma was enjoying the rasa of chivalry. When Bhishma left his body, after that long description to Yudhishthira, the sun started moving in the northerly direction. Grandfather Bhishma withdrew from the scene that was in front of him, fixed his consciousness on the personality of Godhead. And what was that form that was in his mind? It was not this form of Krishna standing before him, but the form of Krishna charging at him on the battlefield. It's very clear. Read in the Bhagavatam. The depiction of his body was ashen from the dust raised by the hooves of the horses. There are beads of perspiration dripping down the side of his cheek and his face. His upper garment was flying behind him in the wind. He was running so fast, and the broken chariot wheel was raised like a Sudarshan chakra, ready to smash Grandfather Bhishma. That was the vision that Grandfather Bhishma held in his mind when he left his body. The servant, with this secondary rasa having such a prominent ecstasy. It's an ecstasy. Although it doesn't look like an ecstasy, it looks like he was trying to kill Arjuna. That's not ecstasy, especially if you're a devotee of Krishna. That's very bad. But it was in the mood of love. So similarly, now I want to read something. There's two somethings. Nectar Devotion, where Srila Prabhupada discusses this, what I've just been describing. So it's part of the mystery of Ramayana. Here's Prabhupada's explanation from Nectar Devotion, chapter 34. An apparent pitiable condition in devotional service may appear distressing to the inexperienced student, that's us, but the feelings of the devotee in this pitiable condition are considered to be ecstatic by expert devotees. For example, the subject matter of the Ramayana is sometimes considered pitiable and distressing to the heart. But actually, that is not the fact. The Ramayana narrates how Lord Ram was sent to the forest by his father just when he was to be enthroned. After Lord Ram's departure, Maharaj Dasarath, his father, died. In the forest, his wife Sita Devi was kidnapped by Ravana, and there was a great war. When Sita Devi was finally delivered from the clutches of Ravana, Ravana's whole family and kingdom and Ravana himself were vanquished. When Sita Devi came home, she was tried by fire, and after some days she was again banished to the forest. All of these subjects in the Ramayana seem very pitiable, and they may appear very distressing to the reciter, but actually they are not. Otherwise, why would Hanuman, the great devotee of Lord Ramachandra, read daily about the activities of Lord Ramachandra as described in the Ramayana itself? The fact is that in any of the above-mentioned 12 transcendental humors of devotional service, everything is transcendentally pleasing. Now, this Nectar Devotion is a summary study of Rupa Goswami's writing, Bhakti Rassa, Amrita Sindhu, the ocean, Sindhu, of Amrita, nectar, and the nectar of Bhakti Rasa. So it's Bhakti Rasa. Embedded within Ramayana is Bhakti Rasa. Even in these difficult, distressing, shoka, grief, great anxiety, great distress, sorrow. In reading Ramayana, it depends on the translation you read, but the one that I was reading, the word sorrow was there like, a number of times at every page. Sorrow, sorrow. And then another set, and sorrow, and then another set. Each personality, as Ram was making his way after Kaikeyi's bad conduct, everyone, except Bhardraj Muni, everyone was very sorrowful in different moods. But those different moods of sorrow, it gets to be like, it's heavy for the heart. But it's an ecstasy. Here's a little explanation out of a longer section from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. this is describing shoka rati. Shoka means lamentation. Intense pain in the heart, arising from separation from a dear one, with thoughts that the beloved has perished, is called shoka, or lamentation. Consider Ram's hearing that Sita has been killed, or Sita being shown the mystical head and bow of Ram, that he's been killed. You know, it's horrible. Shoka. In this state, wailing, falling on the ground, heavy breathing, drying of the mouth, and confusion manifest. Then, the appearance of bhavas, which involve sorrow, arise through thinking that one will not attain the beloved, or Krishna. However, the cause of that sorrow is a previous experience of Krishna. Now, we've forgotten Krishna, but there's a previous experience of Krishna, because we're his eternal associates. It's like somebody in amnesia. There's somewhere in there is, you know, their family members and the people they have forgotten. They just got clobbered on the head and they've got amnesia. After attaining the Lord, in order to remove selfish thoughts that the Lord belongs to oneself, which may spring from that attainment, and in order to nourish the joy of attaining the Lord, Vishada and other sorrowful emotions appear. As part of that bliss, just as hunger nourishes enjoyment of food. That's Rupa Goswami. Such emotions have the appearance of sorrow, but are not really sorrow. This state of happiness and sorrow in the devotee appears like happiness and distress which arise from the material gunas. In the non-devotee, however, this state of happiness and sorrow is not the same. Now there's much more in this whole section, but the part of the charm and attractiveness of Ramayana is its human-like quality. Not just, you know, Romeo and Juliet, or Sita and Ram, and they lived happily and then they went through difficulty and then they got together again and they went through some difficulty. And so it's not just that kind of drama. It's transcendental emotion. And even the parts that are sorrow appearing or distressful, it's another ecstasy. At least this is what Rupa Goswami is teaching us. Now, unless one is in purified consciousness, how is one going to understand what to speak of relish, the ecstasy of sorrow? It's contradictory in terminology, the ecstasy of sorrow. But exalted devotees know that one. And just by hearing, even so, we're not purified. So part of purification is to hear with faith. And of course, we want to hear from the right sources. Hear from Valmiki Ramayana, or these other valid sources like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu referred to the Kurma Purana and the description of Ram's Leela there. Or we made some reference to Padma Purana and the situation with Sita and the parrots and so forth. So we're hearing from authoritative sources. We can place our trust in those sources. And then what to speak of the persons who we're discussing, at least other like-minded devotees who come together and discuss, hear, chant, remember, appreciate, even if it's just wonder. How amazing are these wonderful pastimes of Lord Ram and Lord Krishna. It's purifying. And as that purification continues and continues by the hearing and chanting process, then gradually this attraction for hearing and the attraction for the person who we're hearing about grows. Therefore, we should regularly hear. I don't know if any of you have the habit or practice of when it's Krishna Janmashtami, reading that whole section of the Bhagavatam again, and then like next year again, or in anticipation of Ram's appearance, reading from Ramayana, and then reading again, and then reading again. You never get tired of reading again and again. Just there's newer and newer realizations and appreciations and insights, and it's part of the culture of becoming a qualified Vaishnava in the association of others who are similarly striving to become qualified Vaishnavas. And that conduct, that we're busy people, but still make the time, as despite we're busy people, so that we can become purified, and when we're purified, our character becomes lifted, and when our character becomes lifted, our exchanges become more pleasing, instead of spending so much time with dealing with problems that arise from conflicts between people who aren't purified. You know what I mean? And it can be even family members, or other associates, or the circle of people that we move in, or your friends and whoever. If consciousness is purified by that regular hearing and chanting and Bhagavad Dharma, then the relationships also become elevated just by that purified consciousness. And the converse is also true. So we want to keep good association. We want to, in that good association, engage principally some portion of our time, minimally, in kirtan and hearing the name, fame, glories, and pastimes, like Prabhupada says regularly. And then relationships become elevated, and consciousness becomes elevated, and the heart becomes more satisfied. And our path back to Godhead, the door opens. The path becomes cleared. Very simple process, very sublime process. Very practical. It affects everything that we do if we just do this nicely. And conversely, if we don't do this nicely, it affects everything. Everything gets more complicated. Okay, so any thoughts or comments anybody would like to share? Yeah.
One question, what is a systematic way of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam? Like we can hear from anywhere we want, or it should be properly from the first canto and like that, or any other views of yours?
Either. I mean, naturally it's ideal to read systematically from the beginning, that the composition was made in that way. However, if one reads more randomly than that way, that's also fine. There's not a hard and fast rule.
At my level, I was just wondering, like, what would be the correct way which will keep me on that?
Well, there are top of the option list would be systematic study under the guidance of a teacher. And there are different devotees that are offering the opportunity to have systematic study. And even if somebody, so supposing, that sounds like a nice idea, but they're already in Canto 2, then start in Canto 2. Because that's optimal as hearing in the association of others under a qualified teacher. Yes.
I was going back to the afternoon class where the first one, like Lord Rama was, when he was trying to uphold the dharma, there was a lot of hard consequences, like so many people were in sorrow. And I was feeling scared. Like I'm feeling like how would we do that? Like if so much, it's causing so much sorrow to others. But you are reading that it's a joyful and it's a transcendental, like Hanuman was feeling joyful, reciting the Ramayana every day. I'm just thinking about like why my heart is feeling like that, and is it because of lack of purification? This question.
I'm not sure what your question is. It looks like a couple other people are also not clear what your question is. Let me try to say it back what you might be asking. On the one hand, we hear Hanuman enjoys. On the other hand, it's a fact, when Ram decided to follow what his father said and other circumstances, there was sorrow. And to us it looked like that's real. I mean, his father died, that's pretty real sorrow. Now, how can we say that's an ecstasy? So, and how can Hanuman enjoy speaking about Dasarath dying out of sorrow? That's your question?
Something I feel like my heart is not able to take that conception.
Which one?
That
it's ecstasy. Well, the standard of ecstasy is the intensification of thought of the Supreme. That's ecstasy. That's the standard. Because the Supreme is Satchit Ananda Vigraha, or Raso Vaisaha. That's the Supreme. So you concentrate more intensely, then there's more rasa. And there's secondary rasas along with primary, and the secondary one of them is sorrow. So that comes along with the package of rasa. It's an ecstatic, it's the spike of ecstasy. Taking the complexion of whatever that secondary rasa is.
I'm just thinking like if you make some mistake, it is inconvenience.
Now that's we're not talking mistake. Ram didn't make a mistake. He's the personality of Godhead. We don't measure did he make the right choice or not. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His will is the right choice. We're not questioning did he make the right. Now, how do we apply it in our circumstance? That's something else. We have to consider time, place, and circumstance, and how decisions we make are going to impact other people. That's part of a responsible life. But let's just take Arjuna, for example. Krishna wanted the Kurukshetra battle. He showed him the universal form. It's a done deal. And so you take the credit, you don't. It's done. And Arjuna's hesitation of, will it bring me happiness because then my relatives will be gone and all those other reasons. He left that to the side because Krishna wanted it. That's all. And that's an ecstasy. And then the consequences are whatever the consequences are. That's on Krishna's behalf.
Maharaj, I have one question.
Yeah.
Like you just now explained about the offering with love and offering as a ritual. So like in the morning itself when I was cooking at home, the same thing I was thinking that actually I am
Let me
not,
be like Shabri.
no, I was thinking actually I am not cooking for Krishna till now after so many years. I am cooking for my family. That mood has not yet cultivated.
That's a good realization.
So how to like increase the speed of
Well, it
doing
starts with recognition. You're halfway there. Then you cultivate. It's not like I don't care about now, starting tomorrow I'm not going to care about my family. It doesn't work like that. It's a cultivation of this service to family is part of my service to Krishna because this spirit soul, that spirit soul, this relationship, that relationship, they're parts of Krishna. You just put Krishna at the center. You cultivate that. And then you cultivate. And then all around. It starts with primarily hearing and chanting. So that hearing and chanting, awakening the spirit of devoting oneself to Krishna carries oneself into your cooking and this thing and thatting. And the other things that you do, the teaching. It can be, it's my nature, it's my psychophysical nature. I'm a teacher, so I like being a teacher. It satisfies me. But the bhakti principle is let us try to satisfy Krishna. So it's a good realization. And then so now what to do is you cultivate. Let me think how this can be applied so that Krishna is pleased. Anukulyena. You've heard that lecture, right?
Yeah.
Anukulyena. It's a really good verse. Go over it and over and over and over. I've been doing that, and it's powerful. It's a foundational verse of the whole of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is that one, because what's bhakti? And what you're saying is, it's family, not bhakti. I mean, it's mixed, but we're very conditioned to the material conception of life. And to go beyond the material conception of life, bhakti has the power. Mental adjustment doesn't. Bhakti has the power. Someone else? Yes.
With the practical question again, Maharaj, I am trying to, do some bhakti process, but still sometimes what happens is I'm going upfront, but then I feel like I'm pretending something. I feel like I'm doing some pretense. Like when I'm chanting or I'm praying to God, I often and sometimes I feel like is this true bhakti or is it? I'm not able to assess myself. So how do I go about
Keep it simple. And simple means there's a mix. Right? Mix. That's what's going on. Now, given there's a mix, because we know that we're past that one. Not is it. We know what it is. It's a mix. Let me cultivate over here. Not just like beat myself up over on that side because it's not enough on this side. That's mode of ignorance. Go to the bhakti side. Focus on, and as many times as you have to go there, 10 times, 100 times, 10 million times, 10 billion times, you keep going to the cultivation of bhakti side. And that means you do it for Krishna. Knowing that it's a mix. You're amplifying the do it for Krishna side. It's just like there's two kinds of switches. One is, they call it in the trade, a rocker arm switch, on and off. a 1 or a 0. Then there's a dimmer switch. So just keep moving it, to the brighter side, to the bhakti side. And you'll see it will start to slide back again as soon as you take your hand off the dial. Because, our comfort zone is over here. We're conditioned to something over here. Wow. See. Okay? And then each day, or you can even narrow it down and say, for at least, 10 minutes today, I'm going to really focus. And then the quality of your chanting. That's where it all starts. The power, the spiritual power to go beyond the conditioning starts with the holy name. And you're regularly hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. There's a lot of spiritual potency there. Those two precede even your offerings, your deity worship. The Shravanam Kirtanam comes first, before the Archanam. You're raising your hand or stretching? Huh? Stretching? Okay. Okay. Yes.
I would like to ask a question regarding Grandfather Bhishma.
Okay.
When you were saying that Grandfather Bhishma was in the Dasya Ras, can you please help me understand that? Because I never thought Grandfather Bhishma is in the Dasya Ras.
Well, I know that from scripture, from our acharyas. They say his mood was, just like a very nice example is the Rajasuya. And the elder Bhishma was asked to be, who is the greatest person in the assembly? Whoa, he was ready to go, and Krishna's the greatest person in the assembly. Dasya Rasa. He understood who Krishna was. Now, he was elder. Kunti was less elder, but she had maternal affection, parental affection. Grandfather Bhishma was service. Now, it doesn't mean there was no elderly, kind of a mood, but in the mood of service, because a grandfather can be like that too. And Krishna accepted that mood of service. He accepts whatever mood of service any one of us have. But so your question is, how do we understand it? That was his mood. And because of that, he had such love also for the Pandavas, because they were so intimately connected with Krishna. Now he loved the Pandavas like a father. In the absence of Pandu, he was their father. Grandfather was their father. But in the mood of service. It's unique. Not parental affection, but servitude. That's what our acharyas say. What am I to do about that? Yes.
In the episode of dog, the dog who was a Brahmana in the previous life talking to Lord Rama, the story that you just spoke.
Which story did I speak?
The dog.
The dog. Okay, the dog. Okay.
So the dog mentions that I was a priest, the
Yes.
head priest.
Yes.
And to the extent of my knowledge, I have done everything.
Yes,
right?
that's what he said.
But there may be something, some
Yes.
pride or something.
Yes.
And then you are...
And somehow I got this body of a dog.
dog.
So what to speak of this fellow who is angry and...
Right. And then you were mentioning that in general, any Vaishnava is a leader.
Yes.
So, I'm also acting in some capacity as a leader.
Yes, we all are, in some capacity. Your daughter is, in some capacity. Your wife is. I don't know about your son. I'm teasing. He's too playful.
I just wanted to make sure that what are the checkpoints that I should ask myself that I'm not giving it, or I'm not getting that pride, or I'm not going.
Well, the specific to pride, its antidote is the mood of service. There's a flask up there on the table that's got it's black in color and has a little handle. Can you get it? Thank you very much. Your question is what are the checkpoints, and a very bottom line simple one is mood of service, humble mood of service. You're doing, ask yourself, and if you can ask people close to you. Ask your wife, ask your children. Am I overstepping myself? Am I in the mood of service? Or the students, the people. You don't have to ask them. That's the frame of reference as you put the checkpoint. Am I doing this because it's for me, or am I doing this because it's a service? Same point as you made in the car ride on the way back, which was for the audition of others. When Agastya suggested Panchavati, Ram turned to their place for residence. Ram turned to Lakshman and said, "You make a place that will be very pleasing to me, pleasing to Sita, and pleasing to yourself." And his response was, "Pleasing to you, pleasing to Sita, yes, but pleasing to me, my pleasure is pleasing to you." So that's the checkpoint. It's the mood of service. And the mood of service checks pride. You just stay in the mood of service.
Thank you.
That little session that was with the Uma's class children, 6 or 7 of them. One of them, this girl right in the front, the older one, taller one, said, "What's it like being a Maharaj?" I said, I was thinking to say, "Do you want to be a Maharaj?" I said it wasn't easy becoming a Maharaj. And I'll share this with you. It's on the same punchline. From the earliest stage, one of the lessons I learned from Krishna, it was a pill. It was a difficult pill to swallow. But what Krishna really wants is simply that we want to please him. First month that I was there and living in a temple, that was it. That was the lesson. It's not who you are or what you have to offer. It's your heart. Just do what you do for the pleasure of Krishna. Same point. So with that comes brahmachari training, and I was very happy just being in service to all the Vaishnavas, regardless of who they are, what their position is, because that's what brahmacharis do. And then some years passed, and my GBC tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Guess what? You've been approved to take sannyas." I said, "What?" I didn't know that there was even a procedure. There was a procedure. My name was put in as a candidate, and it was approved. It took some years, and it was approved. I said, "Well, gee, what do I need to take sannyas for? I'm happy doing what I'm doing." He said, "Oh, well, there's facility for preaching." I said, "Facility for preaching? There's more preaching I can do than I can handle. So I don't get it." And, to be honest with you, my dear GBC representative, I became very disturbed over a period of time seeing people, jockeying for position to get some recognition so they could become a sannyasi for what? I was disgusted with that. So no thanks. And his reply was, "Oh, so you're attached." And I didn't understand what he meant at the time. Later I understood, because you're thinking you may want to get married. So some time passed and people were saying, you should take sannyas. So, why? I think it's a good idea if there's a good example of a brahmachari that's satisfied just being a brahmachari. You don't have to have this title and all this fanfare. Just be happy being in service. That's a good example. I think there should be more of such good examples. That was my disposition. No, you shouldn't. So I started thinking, So Prabhupada gave awarded sannyas, and it was important to him. So here we go. So I became a sannyasi. I said, okay. And then, from one day I was a brahmachari, and then one afternoon I was a sannyasi. I had to make my own danda, learned how to do that. Wore my dhoti differently. That's about it. And then the next thing I know, everyone's offering obeisances. So I'm offering obeisances back, because that was the training. They said, no, you're not supposed to do that. I said, what do you mean I'm not supposed to pay obeisances? Forget it, I'm going to pay obeisances. That's what the Vaishnavas do. And then, it just went on for some time. And
Front door.
And more obeisances and obeisances and obeisances. And finally a little light went on that said, you know what? They're not offering obeisances to me. They're offering obeisances to the sannyas ashram. So it goes to, Prabhupada. And my duty is to be a good representative of the sannyas ashram. That's my service. And to transparently pass that on, because I was being told, it's good for people. So they pay the obeisances to the sannyasi. It's good for people. It's a service. So that's what I shared with this girl. It's just a service. Then I became peaceful, because otherwise it was disturbing. But it had nothing to do with it. The problem was it was my own false ego. It's for me. No, it's not for me. Because that's how our contaminated consciousness thinks. Honor, dishonor. So the right position is the mood of service. And transparent mood of service, it's for the honor of Krishna and the spiritual master and our previous acharyas, and that they should be pleased. Then things are nice. Somebody else? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, you mentioned about how you from the brahmacharya ashram to sannyas ashram. You
That triggered you, huh? That triggered you.
Yes, Maharaj, correct.
You ready for sannyas?
Maybe in your blessing. This is the question I want to ask you, Maharaj. So when you begin Krishna conscious, right? When you begin your Krishna conscious thing, like how you develop your belief? By the time
Hearing.
You would have been a Komala Bhakta.
Hearing and association. That's how. It's very simple. You have the same opportunity. Hearing and association. Yes?
Sure.
Different ashram, but the same principle. That's it. Yeah.
Maharaj, we are talking a lot about devotion service. I have a question. Is this the one's own or one's devotional service or the Krishna's causeless mercy that helps the individual in attaining Krishna?
Both.
When you say causeless mercy, it is there is no reason. There is no
Yeah,
other,
causeless means no reason, right.
yeah, but when
Causeless
it's a
mercy.
devotional service, kind of giving, oh, this is the one which helps in attaining.
I'm not sure what you're asking. I thought I was sure what you're asking. There's something that we need to do from our side, and we're dependent upon mercy from Krishna's side. Now, the mercy from Krishna's side is causeless, and from our side, we're eager for trying to please Krishna. So the endeavor to please Krishna and Krishna's mercy, both are required. Not one or the other. Or which one is more important? They're both important. They're both required.
I think Guru Maharaj's question is, the devotional service that we perform, is it a trigger for Krishna to give his mercy? So that becomes
No.
the cause of it.
No. Let me ask you.